What connections did Solo: A Star Wars Story have to the Clone Wars animation show? And what future connections could Solo characters like Qi'ra or Enfys Nest have with Star Wars Rebels characters? All that and more in this video, but I'm Mike and I want to welcome you back to another Community Thursday video here at Force Within TV. I've asked you, the community, about Solo: A Star Wars Story and other interesting connections. Plus, I share some of your amazing theories on how characters like Enfys Nest just might meet up with Rebels characters in the future. And of course, there's going to be spoilers for Solo: A Star Wars Story in this video, so if you haven't seen the movie, check out one of my other videos. First up here, we have Christian Hartsey, and he suggests, well, obviously the big one was Maul. Also mentioned Tobias Beckett had killed Aurra Sing. I personally was silently screaming and pointing at the screen when I heard this line. Philip Taub also commented about this, saying, I know it's not Rebels, but Beckett killed Aurra Sing from Clone Wars. That was cool. And yeah, for me personally, when Aurra Sing was mentioned, it was a real aha moment. Like, wow, I really got to pay attention to what they're saying, who they're mentioning, and I was really able to nerd out and get into the movie and some of those references. Carl also goes on to say, I thought it was great that Maul was not only featured, but literally in the role that he was created in the animated universe. I'm surprised that you didn't mention that the Pike Syndicate are in the film as well in a major way. And yeah, that's a great point, Carl. I totally missed that one. The Pike Criminal Syndicate really haven't been in the movies at all. It's been heavily featured in the Clone Wars, some of the comics, so it was hard to remember that this crime syndicate hadn't actually showed up in the movies at all. And I, for one, am super happy that they did. Something else picked up by Jay McCloskey, hopefully I'm saying that properly, Jay. He commented, didn't Han play an idiot's array during the first card game? And of course, the episode that Lando was in Star Wars Rebels was titled An Idiot's Array, so that would be a cool connection between the Solo movie and Star Wars Rebels that I didn't pick up on my last video. But moving on here, we also have Chrissy Tillmany, and she says, Han Solo did mention Malachor at one point in the movie, and yeah, I've had a couple other people comment that. I'm not exactly sure when it does happen, but it seems like people have picked up on that, and I'll be looking for it in my next viewing, absolutely. But what might be some interesting crossovers between Rebels characters, Clone Wars characters, and new characters explored in the Solo movie like Qi'ra or Enfys Nest? Well, Ward Lafferty did mention in a comment that Qi'ra and Hondo met in the latest Forces of Destiny episode, so it would seem that there's a good chance that we may see Hondo in the next installment of Han's backstory. E.T. Snyder also commented, where it gets really interesting is potential crossover between Rebels characters. Honestly, I think Freddie Prinze Jr. is going to portray Kanan in live action at some point. He's just too much of a dead ringer for the character and is already pretty much a real-life superhero. I hope we get to see him in live action as well. And yes, Kanan is out there. He's wandering the universe. He could literally be just about anywhere. So please include Freddie Prinze Jr. in the Boba Fett movie, for example. That would be awesome. Commenter M. Alred also mentioned that AP5 would have made a great droid somewhere in Solo. I think the droids were one area of the movie that was a bit of a letdown. They all seemed a bit stale and like they were trying too hard to be unique and funny. And I agree, I think AP5 definitely has the right type of sense of humor and really would have fit into this Western type film. And it would have been cool to see Steven Stanton voicing yet another character in a standalone movie. But what about those other cool theories that I mentioned at the beginning of the video? Well, Robin McCormick says, I actually think the tentacles and the Kessel Run belong to some sort of ancient evil monster from way before the Old Republic days that was probably sealed away by ancient Force users, probably precursors to the Jedi and Sith. And yet, wow, that is really cool. Perhaps like, and Robin, I absolutely love this idea, the idea that this big, massive, Purgle-like creature was trapped by ancient Force users. I mean, really, why else would it be hanging out in the space? Maybe hiding, I suppose. And lastly, we have Space Waffles here, and he says the use of Maul is pretty clever on Disney's part. It would undoubtedly spark the question to the casual Star Wars fan, how is he still alive? Perhaps that will get them interested in the Clone Wars and then Rebels. If more Star Wars fans are exposed to the awesomeness of the animated shows, maybe Disney will feel more comfortable using those characters more directly in the movies. And yeah, I think it really comes down to the writer. At this point, I think Disney and especially the story group give the writers a lot of leeway. From what I've heard about Solo, it was actually John Kasdan, Lawrence Kasdan's son, that came up with a lot of these references, such as Aurra Sing saying, from the Clone Wars. And in the future, I'd really like the story group being a bit more, I don't know if aggressive is the right word, but assertive, telling writers that they need to make sure that they're including these sort of references, because from what I've seen on the internet, people are just absolutely eating this up. And from discussions I've had with friends who aren't into the animation series, it was just over their head and it really didn't matter. It doesn't take away from their viewing of the actual movie. So those are all the comments I have time for today. Remember to use the force within you to make the Star Wars community a better place. Share your thoughts and theories and encourage those who do the same. And today's question of the day is going to be, what do you think is the future of Star Wars animation characters in movies? Will we see some Star Wars animation characters making the transition into the Boba Fett movie like I mentioned earlier with Kanan? Let me know in the comments below, and may the Force be with you.